Hey, it's Dante and welcome back to my channel. Guys, I'm really happy to have another video in store for you guys. I literally always say that, but literally making videos is kind of really fun for me, so I am always really excited when I make them. I'm really squinty. Let me adjust the lighting. Okay, sorry, I just had to turn down the lighting a little bit. It was so freaking bright. I literally was like, my eyes were literally like squinting. I just couldn't see. So hopefully that's a little better. I hope it's not super dark. I'm kind of nervous. I can't really see the viewfinder because my camera is like on the back, like the viewfinder. So I can't really see. I'm just like, I always pray that like it's in focus, but like I really never know. Something else I wanted to add in super quick. I have a university coming up in January, so I go back to school, which is gonna be a little difficult to film YouTube videos because obviously I can't do it in my dorm room because I don't want to be up at night constantly editing videos when I have homework, and I also don't want to have to be filming when my roommate's there or like have to try to find times to film because it's gonna be like a lot of work. And I just don't want like people to like walk by and hear me, you know, talking to myself in my dorm, look kind of weird. So I've decided that I'm gonna try to pre-film as many videos as I can. So this is one of my pre-filmed videos. I'm filming this a couple weeks before it's gonna go live, and so that's kind of how the rest of my videos might be. Just wanted to like let you guys know. Also, I want you guys to follow my socials down below if you have any interest. I have my Twitter and my Instagram linked in my channel like banner thing. And I also have them linked down below in the description box. So if you guys are interested in following me there, please come say hi. It'd be really cool. And yeah, okay, let's get into it. It's becoming super on brand for me to add these like last minute editing parts into my video, but like I don't really care. Sorry, I'm gonna adjust the camera. Okay. So, something I want to say is just like this video is going to be a lot shorter than my other ones. I hope that's not really an issue for you guys. It's just this case in particular, it was really hard to find a lot of information on. I had to turn to a lot of local news sources, and so there wasn't that many facts on the case. However, I tried to provide as accurate and big a picture as I could for Kevin Bacon because I wanted to give, you know, him just, you know, the same treatment that I would give all of my other people. So I tried my hardest with this case. Please don't hate me. I know it's a little shorter, but you know what? Think of it like a little fast week. You know, it's gonna be a little quicker, but that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. So today's case is going to be one that is actually kind of relatively recent and new. And I believe it's still like to this day being tried because there's not like a guilty verdict yet or like a non-guilty verdict. They're still going to trial. So today's case is going to be on Kevin Bacon, who, not the actor, I actually looked this up. There's an actor named Kevin Bacon, but this is not about him. This is about another man from Michigan. So I'm going to tell you guys his story. And yeah, so the reason why I chose this one is actually because I heard a couple months ago, like right when it happened, around December of 2019, Jeffree Star had posted a video about this guy talking about him and just saying that he was really touched by this case because he was a long-term supporter of Jeffree Star. So I was super interested in this case, and I actually ended up Googling it and I found it super interesting, and so I thought it might be a good case to kind of bring to you guys and talk to you guys about on this channel. So obviously I always like to start my videos by talking about who the victim was. So I actually don't have too much information on Kevin's life just because he doesn't have like a page about him. Usually I can get like the basic information from like Wikipedia, like birthdays and date of birth and stuff, but there's no page on him. So I was unable to find a lot of this information. So I'm just kind of going to talk about what his friends kind of said, like who he was, and I'm also going to talk about how his parents described him. So Kevin Bacon was living in Swartz Creek, which is a place in Michigan, and he was a student there, and he was attending the University of Michigan, Flint, which is like, I guess, a division of the University of Michigan schools. He also worked as a hairstylist, so he would have, you know, some sort of income while he was a student. He was also an out gay man, which is very important in the story. And his parents described him as someone who was extremely compassionate and kind and just overall wanted to connect with people and make people feel better about themselves. His roommate also described him as someone who was just kind of looking for love and wanted to be loved in return because they had so much love to give and they wanted that back as well. They also said that a few months before his murder that he was finally like coming to accept himself for who he was and just finally learning self-love, and I feel like that's something, you know, a lot of people have to work on, so I was just happy that a few months before his death he was actually able to love himself, and, you know, maybe for the first time in his life he was finally content with himself, which is really good. So his roommate, after his passing, posted a lot of information about him, and so I'll just read kind of what they said, like some just interesting facts about him. So his favorite artists and people were Taylor Swift, Lady Gaga, and Jeffree Star. He was a very creative person and passionate, especially when it came to his art, as he really loved his art and doing different hairstyles and different hair colors. His friends described him as being extremely supportive and a good friend, and he would always go visit his friends when they like would perform in the marching band at the football games. He was also struggling with mental health, but like I said, he was actually improving right before his death, and his mental health was actually starting to get a lot better. So now I'm going to talk about what actually happened to Kevin Bacon, and I'm gonna go more into the details of the crime. So as I said, Kevin was an out gay man, and so a lot of men use this app called Grindr, which is a dating app. It's mainly for hookups, and a lot of gay people do use this, and they go on there to meet up with people that they don't really know. Now this app is known for notoriously not being that safe, because literally what people do is they will send a picture of each other's face, and then they will go and they will meet up and they will do things. And so what happens sometimes is people catfish on this, and they use pictures that aren't them, or you know, you meet them at their house and you don't know who they are, you don't have their number, you don't have their snap, like you have no information on this person other than let's go do this at this person's house. So it's not really a safe app, but that's kind of what it is for, a hookup app. This guy and Kevin have been speaking, I think, all morning, and Kevin decided that he wanted to go over and meet this guy at his house, and so he texted his roommate saying that he wanted to meet this man from Grindr, and that he would be having a couple friends over, and that it was just going to be a fun overall experience. And so his roommate was like, okay, have fun, whatever. And that was the last that anyone had ever heard from Kevin. So the meet was to take place on the day of Christmas Eve in 2019, so that was December 24th. And so that was Christmas Eve. And so the next morning on Christmas Day, Kevin was supposed to meet up with his parents because he didn't live with them, he was a student. So they were supposed to have, I think, a Christmas Day like lunch or dinner, and he never ended up showing, and his parents got really nervous. Like, it was very unlike Kevin to turn off his phone, as they couldn't get in contact with him. And so they decided that it might be important, after not being able to contact him for all day of Christmas Day, so they decided to go to the police. And they said that the last time anyone was able to contact him was at 6:20 of Christmas Eve. So the police, I read, were kind of uncooperative a little bit, but they did, you know, believe that there was something to investigate, so they did look into it. However, the parents said that they weren't the most helpful. His parents also tried to do searches. They had a lot of searches going out, like search parties and things, and so a lot of people were out trying to help and search for Kevin, but they had no success. So although most of the search teams were actually unable to find anything, one of the search teams actually did end up finding his car and most of his belongings inside of the car at a parking lot in Clayton Township, which is right next to the home, or very close at least to the Kevin Bacon's home where he shared with his roommate. So on December 28th, so 4 days after Kevin had disappeared, the police received a call asking for them to go do a welfare check for Kevin Bacon at another man's house. And this other man was a 50-year-old man named Mark Lutunsky. And they believed that, you know, they would find information about Kevin Bacon at this man's house. I don't really know what else was said in this call, other than like they believe that Kevin Bacon may be at this man's house, or that there'd be some sort of information there. I don't know who sent it in, but I know that it was like very helpful, obviously, and it was a pretty good lead. And so his house was in the Bennington Township in Michigan, which was about a 30-minute drive away from Kevin's house. So this man's house was about 30 minutes from where Kevin lived. And so when they arrived at his home, Mark met them at the door and greeted them, and he seemed very normal and nice. And they asked, they said, can we search your home? Like, we got a call saying someone named Kevin Bacon might be here, like it's really important that we come in. And he said, oh, of course, like you can come in, no problem. And so when they arrived at his home, they were able to search it, obviously, because he had allowed them, and they had gone all over the house, and they had gone into his basement. And when they were in the basement, they discovered this secret room. And when they opened the door to the secret room, they were horrified and completely surprised at what they saw. So guys, the next part of the story is going to be a little graphic. I'm sorry, but I want to give you guys the truth of what happened. So I'm going to be going into detail about how his body was found. Please skip about a minute ahead if you don't want to hear that. Maybe 30 seconds to a minute. I don't know. You'll know. But if you don't want to listen, please just go forward. It's a little graphic. So please, like, keep your discretion advised. Viewer discretion advised? So please, viewer discretion advised. So when they opened the door, they found that Kevin was hanging from the ceiling upside down with ropes tied around his ankles. So he was basically held like upside down, basically held up by his ankles. So he was like, you know what I'm saying, like upside down, being held up with ropes. And when they came in to study his body, I'm assuming he was naked, as they were able to see his whole body. And they saw that there were stab marks all over his back, and that there was actually a slash mark around his neck, and they assumed that that was the cause of death, was the slit throat. They also noticed that there was some marks to his genitalia, and that there seemed to be a lot of blood down there, and they didn't really know, like, if he was just stabbed there or what had happened, and so they didn't find out what happened until they interviewed Mark a little later, and it's shockingly horrific. So after seeing this crime scene, they knew that a crime had occurred, and so they decided to, obviously, arrest Mark because they knew that he had some part in this. It was obviously in his house. And they charged him right there and then with murder. So during his questioning, he admitted to everything. He said that, yes, I did stab Kevin and I did slit his throat. And he also said that he had removed his testicles and consumed them. and that explains why there was a lot of blood found in his genitalia area. So obviously they wanted to find out more information. Now he had just admitted to this, but they wanted to know if there were any more victims, because if he had done this once and murdered one person in this brutal way, then he had probably had other victims. And so they decided to comb through old police records and see if there had ever been this man's name mentioned on any documents, and there were. In one case, on October 10th, a 46-year-old man was seen climbing the fence near Mark's house. And when the police interviewed this man, they said that he had tried to escape after he got scared during a sexual encounter. However, it said that it was not like it's not like Mark had threatened this man. It just seemed like he got nervous during the sexual encounter and tried to flee, because he had actually gone back a few more times that month. So I don't really understand that. I mean, he said he got scared, but then he ended up going back. But they did find that, you know, people were leaving his house scared. And there was actually another example of this on November 25th, when neighbors saw a man running only in a kilt down the roads. And they were like, what the hell? It was like very cold. They said it was like 40 degrees. This is very, very uncommon. And they saw that another man was chasing them. And so this man went to somebody's house and said, please call the police, please call the police. And so when the police came, Mark and this man in the kilt were there, and Mark had said that he was just chasing after this man because he had run off with his kilt, and this kilt costed $300, and he wanted to make sure that he kept it. The man that was in the kilt that was running said that although he did consent to the sex that they were having, he did end up getting very scared, as Mark had tied him down, which he said was okay at first, but then he started to get nervous midway through, and that's when he decided to run and escape the house. So that was just kind of a few more examples of like crimes that he had been involved in, although they weren't really crimes, just like run-ins with the law, I guess you could say. So in January of 2020, Mark had said at his pre-trial that he was incapable of standing trial because he was mentally unstable. And while he was there, he claimed that he was actually royalty and went under a completely different name and had this fake persona that was basically like that he was a prince or a king in like the British Empire or something. So he was out of it. No one really knows if he was faking this or if this was actually true, because he was, I believe, taking medication to deal with some mental health issues that he was having. So no one really knew if this was true or not, but they decided to send him to a psych eval place for 6 months to see if this was true or not. And a quote from his defense attorney kind of describing the way he was acting was, he believes he's named someone else. He believes he's from a royal family out of Wales, the Thomas clan. And just the nature of the crime itself, you've got to send him for the evaluation. So this was him talking to the judge. He's been very cooperative with the department. Both of us have spoken with him. My investigator and I have gone and talked to him. He's cooperative and very polite. Other than that, I call them grandiose stories. He appears to really believe them. So in February of 2020, they officially sent Mark into this lockdown facility where they would examine him and his mental status in this lockdown facility. And so after about 6 months of treatment and observation, Mark had come out of this treatment place, and he was deemed by the experts there and by the judge to be mentally stable, and so they decided to commence with the trial. And so this was when he went to trial. It was about 6 months after this. So in September they decided he was able to stand trial. So now that is kind of where the story ends for now. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious he admitted to doing it. I don't really know why he's pleading not guilty now or trying to pretend that he didn't do it when he most certainly did, and it's pretty obvious. But I don't have much more information now about any verdicts that are going on. I think that the case is actually ongoing now, but because of Corona and everything, you know, things have been a lot slower. And so yeah, guys, that is all the information I have on the case of Kevin Bacon. I hope you guys were able to learn something from this video, and I hope you guys found this case as interesting as I did. I definitely thought it was really weird, obviously the whole entire case. And I found it really sad just because this poor young man lost so much in his life, and you know, when he was just starting to finally love himself, it was taken away from him by this man who was clearly not mentally stable. And it's just really, really sad. And I wanted to share this story because it really touched me that he was able to live his life so authentically. You know, he dyed his hair, he didn't let people judge him for who he was, and he was finally starting to just be who he was. And that's why I wanted to share his story, so more people would know who Kevin Bacon was. So I really hated the ending of my video, so I'm just gonna kind of take over. Obviously, I said thank you again for watching my video, and I obviously meant that, and I still mean that. Thank you so much. It means a lot. I am going to plug my social medias again. They're down in the description box if you guys want to follow me there. That'd be super cool. On Twitter, I want to post a lot more about like case updates. So like, for example, this case would be really cool if I could post what the verdict is when it finally comes out, which could be in a month, in a year, who knows. But that's where I'll be posting that. And my Instagram, if you guys want to see like a different side of me, like where I'm not doing like true crime and stuff, where I'm just kind of vibing. And yeah, so that's really all I have to say. Also, the camera quality in this video like low-key popped off. I don't really know what I did differently, but I think it really worked really well. So yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.